Did you know that Castro, the great Cuban dictator, was actually not a communist when he started his political career? Some of you may twitch or turn your nose at that. A man that literally told his partner Che Guevara to go and spread the word of communism all across Latin America. But actually, he was a Cuban nationalist when he started his political career in Cuba, only vying to free his people from the control of the corrupt Cuban government of Facundo Batista. So, what happened along the way? At some point he became a communist. Well, concerning the entire context of the Cold War, the US misinterpreted his words of nationalism for words of communism. And thus, they vied to suffocate and destroy Castro's government. And they did, in fact, suffocate it, and they did their best. They imposed economic sanctions, tariffs. They even attempted to invade at a certain point. The infamous Bay of Pigs invasion, we all learned about it in US history. Now, as of Castro, well, his hatred for the US grew to such an extent that he walked into the warm embrace of Soviet communism. Hatred, ladies and gentlemen. Hatred is the word that I want to focus on this evening. Because believe it or not, hatred lives in our subconscious thoughts, in our subconscious actions, and it is incredibly present in our day-to-day lives. We live in a world where people are supremely connected to each other. People can send messages to their friends hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. Others can develop relationships and even share conversations with complete strangers just because they like the same Instagram post. Yet, despite this, we are also living in one of the most divided times in human history. Ironic, isn't it? A time where people are connected the most also turns out to be a time where people are divided the most. And this is all fed because of, you guessed it, a cycle of hatred that is fed by multiple people with their different values and their rigorous belief systems. And these people are so rigid that they refuse to envision themselves in a world where their actions take part in a global community of others with different perspectives and points of view. Now, I remember drama in the 9th grade as if it was yesterday. It was such an interesting class because it was full of people with different personalities and, of course, different values and different belief systems. Now, on March 8th, which is National Women's Day, my drama class were tasked with portraying the issues that feminists have and will continue to fight for as long as the cause goes on. And, well, my group was tasked with dramatically representing the act of sexual assault. Now, soft enough for a high school class, but strong enough to send the message forward. Now, in my group, there were 3 girls and 2 guys, me and my friend Bill. Now, one of the girls came up to my friend Bill, and she told him to be, to play the one that commits sexual assault in the scene. Now, my friend Bill was just confused because of the no-nonsense decision-making. Why was he supposed to be the one to commit sexual assault in the scene? The girl looked at him dead in the eye and said, "Because you look like you'd do it." Yeah, tough, right? Hearing those words at 15 years old. Just a girl telling you that not just that you look like you're capable of doing it, that you simply look like you do it. A sex predator at 15 years old. That has its twisted repercussions. And it did, in fact, affect my friend. He became quiet, reserved, and just very reluctant to speak, which contrasted with his outspoken personality. And this wasn't the worst thing that happened to my friend. He became a victim to a counterculture, a group of hatred that was starting to prey and infect on the minds of young men back then. The Sigma male culture. A group, an echo chamber of unrealistic expectations, prejudice, and misogyny. My friend slowly started to lose himself to this, and less of him started appearing. His very essence started to fade, and it tore me apart. Because at the end of the day, it was the words that they were passing on, these words of relief, these words of power in a world that was constantly making him feel powerless, these words of value and relevance in a world that constantly made him feel irrelevant. He just took place in his mind and was destroying his worldview. And I'm going to be honest here, it also affected me and many other of my friends. I mean, of course, let's not just be rash and let's not lie here. Endless and unrealistic expectations of waking up early in the morning, taking a cold shower, and working on the many formulas, apparently proven formulas, of becoming a millionaire at 15, 16 years old. I mean, are we insane? That's how high the bar was. We're supposed to retire our parents at 15 and 16 years old. How ridiculous does that sound? And as I'm saying this, it sounds ridiculous. But back then, nobody thought it was ridiculous. Everybody thought that it was true, that that was the way to go. And it took me and my friends years to realize that this was not the way to go. So why should you go in this path? Essentially, what this ideology, this group, these Sigma men pass on is an expectation for utter perfection. They expect for you to do everything perfectly. Every action that you take, every step that you take forward must be perfect. And that is just so unbelievably unsustainable, especially as a teenager, a time where you're supposed to make the most mistakes to learn from them. And when that bar of perfection is not reached, we bounce to the other extreme. Everything is terrible. Everything we make is terrible. Every step that we take is terrible. Thus, we are terrible people. And we praise this dysfunctional relationship between what's perfect and not perfect. And it's just utterly delusional, ladies and gentlemen. But this expectation for perfection doesn't just affect oneself. It doesn't just divide you. It also divides families, friends, entire communities. It goes back to socio-political polarization that I was talking about at the beginning. This expectation for perfection, the fact that we must punish any minor flaws in anybody because they are not following the rules of perfection that we follow, it's what we start to do. And it's subconscious. It's in our subconscious. It's been engraved in our subconscious thoughts and in our actions. And what we do once we are hurt, what we do once we are punished for those mistakes, we run to one extreme or the other, wherever we feel more comfortable, wherever our version of ourselves is perfect and no longer flawed. And this is how we continue to attack each other. And just like my friend who fell to these Sigma men, well, the reality of the situation, ladies and gentlemen, is that as pompous, as strong, and as powerful as these words may seem, radical, extreme, at its core, it's all fragile. It's all weak. We're not just living in one of the most divided times in human history, we're also living in one of the most fragile times in human history where people are hurt the easiest. So, what is the solution? I'm sorry to tell you there is none. I mean, why? This problem is so multi-layered, so complex. Why would there be a fixed solution? There isn't. So why did I just give you this 10-minute talk? Well, we're witnessing the beginning of the solution. A time where we are now recognizing that this division is no longer invisible. I took this invisible wall and I put it right in your faces. And I've shown you how incredibly divided we are as a community. and how there are multiple subgroups that will only continue to affect and continue to divide us. We may put the blame on Sigma men, but there are others out there that will only continue to divide us. There are other groups. And well, at the end of the day, this is the witness, this is the birth of the solution. We only recognize our subconscious actions, and from then we can grow into a global community where we can come together and celebrate our differences. Thank you.